The alarm rang precisely at 6 in the morning, its sharp metallic clatter slicing through the quiet of dawn. I opened my eyes, and on the ceiling was that familiar mold spot immediately recognizable. This was the 4-person dormitory at St. Mary's Academy, across the room. I heard rustling sounds from the bunk bed. Lily had already dressed and stood in front of the mirror, arranging her meticulously styled golden curls. In the reflection, I could clearly see her flawless makeup, and her eyes flicked toward me with a guarded, suspicious glance. Today was the Federal Union's highest-level certified public accountant qualification exam. On this very day, in my previous life, I had hastily woken up to her incessant urging, only to find at the entrance of the exam hall that my admission ticket had turned into a blank sheet of paper while she walked calmly in with my ticket, securing a full scholarship and entry to a top-tier accounting firm. I sat up, throwing off the blanket and getting out of bed. Lily turned, her face adorned with a flawless smile. Holding 2 freshly brewed cups of hot coffee, she walked over gracefully in her high heels and handed one to me. "Good morning. Drink this coffee to wake up. Today is a big day. We must not be late," she said, her fingers lightly stroking the rim of the cup. Her gaze involuntarily flicked to the black file bag on my desk, the one with the examination supplies. My admission ticket was in the outer transparent pocket last night. I didn't reach for the coffee. Instead, I walked straight to the bathroom. "Thanks. I prefer to drink after I've washed up," I said. The bathroom door was partly open, through the mirror's reflection. I clearly saw the moment I closed it. Lily quickly set the cup aside and reached for my file bag. Her movements were lightning fast. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and slipped it into my bag, while extracting my original admission ticket and tucking it into her Givenchy handbag. She moved too quickly. The elbow jostled her coffee cup. Splush. The warmth splashed out, soaking a large pile of documents on my desk. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I accidentally knocked it over." Lily's startled cry echoed through the dorm, laced just right with panic and self-reproach. As she yelled, she frantically dabbed at the mess with a paper napkin, trying to cover up her recent theft with chaos. I pushed open the bathroom door and walked out. Expressionless, Lily looked up, her eyes slightly red, clutching a coffee-stained wad of paper. "I didn't mean to. I was just trying to tidy your pen case. Someone accidentally bumped the cup. Look, your materials are soaked now. What should we do?" As she spoke, she used her body to shield her Givenchy handbag, pushing it deeper into the bookshelf. I didn't glance at the ruined documents. Instead, I went directly to her bookshelf. "It doesn't matter. I've memorized everything anyway. Since you feel bad, maybe you could lend me your core review notes from last night. Perfect for reviewing on the way to the exam." As I spoke, I reached for her pink notebook on the desk. Lily's face subtly changed. She reached out, trying to stop me. "Those are just random notes, full of mistakes. They might mislead you." My hand arced through the air, not to the pink notebook, but to knock over the dipped edge of her Givenchy handbag, which she had pushed deep into the bookshelf. Thud. The bag fell to the floor. The zipper wasn't fully closed, and its contents spilled out: lipstick, powder compact, car keys, 2 identically folded admission tickets, and 1 document tightly wrapped in a brown paper envelope. On the envelope's seal, clearly visible, was the red confidential stamp from St. Mary's Academy's Academic Affairs Office. That was the internal reference direction for today's final major exam question. Lily's father, Charles, is a school trustee and a director of a multinational conglomerate, so obtaining such a document was hardly surprising. In her past life, she had relied on this very document to achieve nearly full marks, while I lost my qualifications because my admission ticket had been destroyed. Lily's face turned deathly pale. She hurriedly crouched down to retrieve the scattered items and tried to shield the brown paper envelope with her body. "Sorry, my hand slipped," I said before she could react, bending down to pick up the car keys and the envelope lying on the floor. As I stood up, I sharply scraped my fingertip along the edge of the envelope, tearing its seal open. I glanced inside: 3 complex asset valuation questions on transnational mergers and acquisitions, with even the standard answer formulas clearly written. "Don't touch my things," Lily screamed, snatching the envelope from my hand and clutching it tightly against her chest. Her breathing became ragged, a flash of venom in her eyes, but she quickly forced a smile. "That's my personal privacy. One doesn't behave so rudely by touching others' belongings." I tossed the car keys onto her desk and picked up my black file bag from beside her. Inside, tucked in a clear layer, lay the admission ticket she had swapped. I didn't expose her. Just zipped the bag closed. It's about time we should get going, I said, slinging my backpack over my shoulder and walking past her toward the dormitory door. Lily stood frozen, watching my back with no suspicion. A faint twitch passed through the corner of her eyes. Quickly, she stuffed the 2 admission tickets from the floor into the inner pocket of her clothes, then picked up her bag and followed closely. The corridor's motion-activated lights flickered on one by one with our footsteps. A thin mist hung over the morning campus of St. Mary's College, the air carrying a chill. At the parking lot, Lily pressed the unlock button on her red BMW sports car. She turned to me, her face again showing the condescending arrogance. Come on, let's take my Riddy on such a day. The school bus might make us late. As roommates, I'll give you a ride. I stood beside the car door, watching her open the door and take the driver's seat. No thanks, I've already made plans. With that, I turned and walked toward the school gate. Lily rolled down the window and let out a cold laugh. Suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you. There's traffic control around the exam area today. If you're late, you won't even be allowed inside. The red convertible roared to life, emitted a spurt of exhaust, and vanished into the misty campus road. I stood for a moment, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number. Hello, is this the Academic Affairs Independent Supervision Unit? I'd like to file a named complaint. Someone is suspected of illegally obtaining insider examination questions for today's professional certification exam. The leak source points to the school board. After hanging up, I signaled a black Volkswagen sedan waiting by the curb. The window rolled down. David, a senior invigilator from the Academic Affairs Office, sat in the driver's seat, his face stern. You're sure the evidence can be verified at the exam site? I opened the door, got into the passenger seat, and handed him a photo I'd taken on my phone earlier in the dorm, just the corner of the brown paper envelope. The confidential stamp's numbering was clearly visible. One of the 3 backup exam sets from this year's Unified Examination Question Committee. Mr. David, she's now heading to the exam hall with the original. If we intercept her before security screening, we'll get both her and the evidence on the spot. The car slowly pulled forward, heading toward the central exam hall in St. Mary's great auditorium. The sidewalk outside the central exam hall was packed with candidates, and the massive granite pillars of St. Mary's Grand Hall cast huge shadows under the morning light. With 40 minutes remaining before the first subject began, vigilance lines had already been set up, and 2 rows of security officers with metal detectors stood sternly verifying admission tickets. Lily stood at the head of the line of examinees, her Dior perfume especially pungent in the dry air. She fiddled with her Givenchy handbag while occasionally glancing back toward the main road. When she saw me step out of Supervisor David's black car, a flicker of shock passed through her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a self-assured, sneering smile. I hurried to the end of the queue in the candidate passage. Lily, in her stiletto heels, deliberately slowed her pace, stepping back from the front, and precisely inserted herself in front of me. She turned around, letting out a soft chuckle barely audible to anyone except us. Looks like you're lucky managed to ride with the invigilator. But ultimately, this exam tests real ability. Some people can't even hold on to an admission ticket, so don't dream of a full scholarship. I ignored her provocation, calmly pulling out the counterfeit admission ticket from my file pouch. Through the transparent plastic film, I could clearly see a tiny, fuzzy irregularity along the edge of the barcode beneath the photo evidence that it had been printed on inferior paper, then photocopied, cut, and glued on. Under the official infrared scanner, the card wouldn't reveal any candidate information at all. Lily's gaze fell on my admission ticket, and the curve of her mouth widened. She was certain I was clueless. At that moment, the lead supervisor David approached the security checkpoint, accompanied by 2 exam monitors. Lily suddenly stepped forward and raised her hand high. Teacher David, there's an urgent situation that needs your attention. Her voice was sharp and loud, instantly drawing the attention of dozens of nearby examinees. The previously noisy corridor fell silent. David paused, frowning at her. Student, what's the issue? We're about to start the security check. Lily displayed an expression of intense inner struggle, almost pained, then turned and pointed at me. Teacher, I'm Lily, a distinguished student representative from St. Mary Academy. Though this student is my roommate, I can't ignore misconduct. I happen to see in the dormitory that her admission ticket appears to be forged. For the sake of today's exam fairness, I suggest we conduct an immediate private review. No chance must be given to a cheater to enter the testing room. The surrounding examinees erupted in low murmurs. As numerous skeptical and contemptuous eyes turned toward me, Lily slightly lifted her chin, appearing like a victorious defender of justice, staring defiantly into my eyes. What are you even talking about? Several classmates in the queue behind me couldn't help whispering. David said nothing, stepping directly in front of me and extending his hand. Show me your admission ticket. I obediently opened the file bag and handed over the counterfeit ticket with the fake barcode. David took it, examined the edge, and his face immediately darkened. He swiped the card through his handheld infrared terminal, and the machine immediately emitted a piercing beeping alarm. A red line flashed on the screen. No such candidate information found. Your admission ticket is indeed fake. Student, please step out of the line and undergo examination by the supervision team, David reported, his voice cold and unyielding. Lily's eyes lit up with triumphant elation. She even leaned forward slightly, feigning sorrow as she sighed. How could this happen? You've always had such great grades. Why would you resort to such a shady trick? I'm truly disappointed. I stood my ground, my face showing not the slightest trace of panic, but instead fixing my gaze intently on the bulging pocket on the inside of Lily's clothes. Teacher, my admit card is definitely fine. This morning, before I left, my file bag was kept on the dorm table. Since Ms. Lily seems so concerned about the fairness of the exam, even knowing the authenticity of my admit card so well, how about asking the proctor team to check her bag too? Lily seemed to have heard the world's greatest joke, letting out a cold laugh. Check me. I'm a consistently top scholarship recipient, fully compliant examinee. Stop slandering me. His is utterly unreasonable. David, teacher. I turned, my voice firm. This morning in the dorm, Lily took advantage of the coffee spill chaos to switch my admit card. If I'm not wrong, my real one, traceable via infrared scannies, now in her left inner pocket, and her own true certificate, stained with coffee and unscannable, is hidden in that same spot. Lily's smile instantly froze. Her face turned pale visibly fast. You're spitting out lies, teacher. She's a rabid dog biting at nothing, deliberately wasting my exam time. She automatically reached her hand to cover the left pocket of her clothes, stepping back instinctively. That attempt to cover up didn't escape David's eyes. Remove your hand. David signaled two female proctors beside him. Begin a routine search. You can't touch me. My father is a Charles School Board director. You have no right. Lily shrieked and struggled, but the two stern female proctors had already flanked her. Grabbing her arms, one reached into the inside pocket of her clothes and pulled out two folded papers together. Snap! The two admit cards landed on David's mobile desktop. One had my name and photo printed clearly, the barcode pristine. The other had Lily's name, but a large, still damp coffee stain in the upper right corner. The barcode smudged and indistinct. David scanned my real admit card on the terminal device. Beep! A clear sound chimed. The screen displayed, candidate identity verification successful. Please proceed to the examination hall. This is impossible. Why would it be here? Lily's eyes bulged wide, staring at the two cards. Cold sweat beading on her forehead. The surrounding examinees erupted entirely. All the whispered gossip and disdain now turned directly onto Lily. Oh my God, she actually stole someone else's admission card and blamed the victim. How dare she act like a lady? Her methods are so disgraceful. David's eyes were icy cold. He handed back my authentic admit card, then stared at Lily with icy contempt. Ms. Lily, you're suspected of stealing another person's examination credential and deliberately disrupting exam order. Given that your admit card is stained and your conduct severely violates regulations, you must go to the nearby proctor's office immediately to explain the situation. You're delayed from entering the first section of the exam. No, I'm innocent. She framed me. Lily screamed wildly, clutching the security gate's iron railing, refusing to let go. Her exquisite curly hair spilled out in the struggle, utterly losing its earlier elegance. I took back my admit card, gave her not even a look, and stepped lightly through the infrared security gate. Beep verification passed. Amid the beeping of the metal detector scanning over my body, I walked up the steps toward the grand hall. Behind me, Lily was forcibly dragged by two supervisors toward the administrative office. The first exam session ended in silence. I finished writing the last asset valuation formula, put away my pen, and calmly walked out of the grand hall. Just as I reached the center of the hall, the candidates who had previously dispersed formed a dense circle. At the center of the crowd, an administrative secretary from St. Mary's College's registrar's office was pushing a mobile display board, on which an urgent notice was posted. Announcement on the termination of student Lily's qualification for this year's top global consortium Goldman Sachs Morgan Joint Youth Scholar Program. Lily was currently standing beside the notice board, her high-end tuxedo jacket missing a button from the earlier pulling and tugging. Looking slightly disheveled, she clutched a thick stack of documents tightly in her hands, her face pale and bluish from intense anger. Behind her, at the entrance to the VIP lounge facing the hall, the registrar was accompanying a silver-haired, elegant woman, Professor Grace, a world-renowned financial scholar and chief examiner for this selection process. In my previous life, it was on this very day that Lily successfully used my stolen core research report on cross-border mergers to impress Professor Grace, securing the top referral letter that allowed her to dominate Wall Street. This is unfair. Lily's sharp voice shattered the tension in the hall. She didn't care about the disdainful stares of those around her and marched directly toward Professor Grace, her high heels clicking loudly. Professor, that test-taker incident was just a misunderstanding. Someone deliberately framed me. My academic ability is well known across the entire school. This is my independently completed, 3-month-long research report for this selection, titled Dynamic Asset Valuation Model for Hostile Takeovers by Transnational Corporations. Please, I beg you, take just a look. Lily raised her voice and held the stack of papers high, offering them directly to Professor Grace. A few finance professors in the looking-on crowd glanced at the report's abstract and couldn't help letting out soft gasps. The report's analytical approach was particularly ingenious. The data model flawless, truly a mark of a master's early work. Professor Grace stopped walking and paced, her gaze lingering for 2 seconds on the report's cover, her eyes showing a hint of scrutiny. You completed this independently. Her voice was low and authoritative. I absolutely did. Every single data point, every formula was derived after I spent countless nights exhaustively reviewing nearly a decade's worth of federal core financial records. Lily's voice rang out with conviction, her face showing a twisted frenzy born of extreme confidence. She was certain that I had only had time to glance at the cover this morning and could not possibly know the core content inside. With my backpack on my back, I leisurely walked from the back of the crowd and stood on the steps leading to the lounge. Professor Grace, I said, looking at the silver-haired woman, my voice calm and clear. Before you read that report, I suggest you flip directly to page 47 and check the calculation formula in the third section about the Delta Airlines hostile shorting case. Lily suddenly turned one's head, her eyes locked onto mine, hate blazing in her stare. You shut up. This isn't your place. Not a suspected cheater who failed to pull it off. This is my personal academic achievement. Didn't you dare act all righteous in front of me. Professor Grace ignored Lily's outburst and picked up the report, flipping skillfully to page 47 with one swipe of her fingers. The hall instantly fell silent. Every eye was fixed on the renowned academic titan waiting for her verdict. On page 47, third line, I looked at Lily, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of my lips. There's a formula for discounted free cash flow. In the denominator, you used the outdated adjustment coefficient from a textbook version 3 years old, didn't you? Lily paused, clearly having no memory of that detail. The report she stole was from the hidden compartment of my desk. She only understood the conclusion, never bothering to verify the intricate derivations behind it. So what if I did? Lily lifted her chin defiantly, retorting loudly. The old coefficient still holds reference value under specific macroeconomic conditions. That means my research accounts for historical longitudinal comparison, but that's not historical comparison. I took a step forward, pulling out from my backpack a fresh copy of the Federal Financial Daily, stamped with today's date, and handed it to Professor Grace. Professor, the Federal Audit Bureau updated the risk premium benchmark for cross-border mergers and acquisitions just 2 weeks ago. The old coefficient was officially abolished 5 days ago. Yet in this report, this erroneous old coefficient was not only used, it miraculously led, on page 48 in the final settlement, to a perfectly correct answer that perfectly adheres to the new regulations. Professor Grace's gaze flicked rapidly between the report and the newspaper, her previously calm expression instantly clouded with cold fury. How could a flawed denominator in the data produce an absolutely correct numerator? Unless someone knew the correct answer in advance, then forcing the numbers into place, making it up. Fabricated process. Fabricated data, even the answer guessing was so crude. Professor Grace slammed the stack of reports onto Lily's chest, the force sending Lily stumbling back 2 steps. No, it's not like that, Professor. Please let me explain. Lily's face was completely drained of color, the reports scattering from her hands, papers fluttering through the air. When did the academic integrity at St. Mary's College fall to this point? Professor Grace coldly addressed the academic affairs director beside her. Using leaked internal exam answers to reverse engineer your academic report. This student isn't just suspected of stealing unpublished research, she's engaged in serious academic fraud. A wave of louds erupted among the surrounding students. Oh my God. Even the academic report was just copied from someone else's answer. Disgraceful. Actually tried to trick Professor Grace into writing a recommendation letter. I stood amid the scattered papers, watching Lily, her face deathly pale. This morning in the dorm, I had deliberately let her snatch the internal exam question in the brown envelope, and under the cover of borrowing the pink notebook, I had strategically left behind the original report preloaded with a lethal data trap. She thought she grabbed the shortcut to the summit, but unknowingly, it was a death trap I had laid out for her, step by step. From this moment on, revoke all recommendations for this student in the federal finance sector. Professor Grace turned without another glance at Lily, walking straight into the VIP room. The door slammed shut. Lily collapsed onto the floor, drowning in a sea of accusations and mockery. But I turned neatly and walked toward the afternoon exam prep area. At 1:30 p.m., half an hour before the second exam began, 2 burly bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses stood rigidly on either side of the dean's office door on the second floor of the Grand Hall, their expressions cold and stern. A suffocating sense of pressure filled the corridor. I had just reached the corner when the office door was abruptly shoved open from the inside. Lily was walking out, arm in arm with a heavy-set man in a suit, his temples streaked with gray. His gaze was sharp and menacing, and on his chest hung the golden emblem of the highest honor of St. Mary's College, the school's board president. It was Lily's father, Charles. Lily had changed into a clean Chanel coat. Her reddened eyes were filled with undisguised triumph as she turned to me, jutting her chin forward in a taunting gesture. It's her. Lily pointed at me, her voice tinged with perverse satisfaction. Father. It's her who used forged evidence to mislead Professor David and Professor Grace, making me miss the first exam. You must immediately revoke her exam eligibility and expel her from St. Mary's College. Charles stopped, looking down at me with the cold arrogance of a superior. You're the student who stole my daughter's report from the dorm. His voice was low and commanding, leaving no room for argument. He turned to the dean, who had just stepped out behind him. Get her file. Cancel all her exam results today. St. Mary's doesn't need parasites with such corrupt morals. The dean broke out in cold sweat, wiping his brow and nodding vigorously. Yes, Director Charles. We'll act immediately. Restrict her access right away. Facing this man who could control everything at the school, I didn't step back. Instead, I pulled my phone from my pants pocket and pressed play in front of Charles. Father, are you sure the 3 backup exams leaked by the final exam committee today are secure? Don't worry, Lily. I already used my board privileges to secure the answers to the major case questions in this acquisition deal. The recorded phone call between Lily and Charles clearly echoed from the phone, revealing in detail how Charles had used the school's secure internal line to receive the documents. The audio reverberated across the empty corridor. Charles's face turned from green to purple in an instant. The arrogance in his eyes flickered with sudden fear. You. How could you have T.S.? This is illegal wiretapping, Lily shrieked, lunging forward to snatch the phone. I sidestepped smoothly, tucking the phone safely back into my pocket. Director Charles, do you really believe that as long as you're within the school walls, your board title gives you the power to silence everything? I stared at his face, twisted now by anger and fear. Why not check your email? Just 5 minutes ago, this recording, along with the complete bank records of the past 3 years showing you diverted $2 million federal dollars from the St. Mary's Special Academic Scholarship to pay for named co-authorship of Lily's papers, was sent to Kevin, the private mailbox of the federal independent auditor. Hearing the name Kevin, Charles staggered violently, nearly losing his balance. Kevin was the infamous iron auditor of the federal government, ruthless in his actions, deeply entrenched, far beyond the reach of character like Charles, a provincial tycoon. You're lying, you poor wretch. How could you possibly contact Mr. Kevin? Lily had no idea about the horror behind that name and continued screaming hysterically. At that moment, Charles's private phone in his pocket started vibrating wildly. He tremblingly pulled it out and pressed the answer button, because the corridor was so quiet. The panicked voice of his assistant came clearly through the phone. "Chairman, it's not good. The Federal Audit Bureau's investigative vehicles have already blocked the main entrance of the company headquarters. They presented a real name complaint letter and complete records of internal transfers, even applied for an asset freezing order. The school board also just issued an emergency notice, demanding you immediately suspend your duties for investigation." The phone dropped with a thud onto the smooth marble floor, its screen cracking like a web. Charles seemed to grow 10 years older in an instant, his originally upright figure hunched over, staring at me with eyes bloodshot. Who are you? When did you obtain these financial records?" I didn't answer his question. In my previous life, I was pushed to the brink of no return by his power as a board member, even failing to obtain my graduation certificate. This time, I had collected evidence of his embezzlement 6 months in advance, waiting only for today to deliver the fatal blow. Father, what's wrong? Quickly have the guards capture her." Lily frantically tugged at Charles's sleeve, completely unaware that her support structure had completely collapsed. Charles suddenly slapped Lily across the face, so hard she was knocked to the ground. "Shut up. You're good for nothing. Always causing trouble," Charles roared angrily, then turned his head and looked at me with a nearly pleading expression. "Classmate, we can talk. As long as you withdraw your report to the Audit Bureau, I promise I'll give you the best recommendation letter, even a sum of." At that moment, the pre-exam bell for the second session suddenly rang. I raised my wrist to check my watch, ignoring Lily, who was lying on the ground, covering her face in disbelief, and ignoring Charles, whose face turned deathly pale. "Sorry, but exam time is over." I walked past the 2 stunned bodyguards and straight down the stairs toward the exam hall's light. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sunlight pierced through the stained glass ceiling of the grand hall, casting fragmented patterns of light onto the cold marble floor. The second exam had just ended, and candidates were gradually filing out of the examination rooms toward the rest area. I was heading toward the restroom, backpack slung over my shoulder. As I passed a secluded corner at the end of the corridor, a figure suddenly darted out from the adjacent storage room, blocking my path. It was Lily. She had changed out of her dusty coat and was now wearing only a thin white shirt. Her once perfect makeup was completely smudged, eyeliner streaking at the corners of her eyes, giving her a haggard, exhausted look, as if she'd just survived a nervous breakdown. Yet strangely, her expression lacked the arrogance she'd shown earlier. Instead, a look of almost pathetic pleading now spread across her face. "We need to talk," Lily said hoarsely, her hands gripping tightly at the hem of her shirt. I stopped in my tracks, coldly staring at her. I stood at the corner at the end of the corridor, the only blind spot in the surveillance system of St. Mary's Grand Hall, obscured by a large Victorian-style vase and a storage cabinet that blocked the view of the overhead camera. In my past life, it was right here that she had surrounded me, blocked my escape, and stolen my original study materials. "I have nothing to talk to you about," I said, as if preparing to walk past her. "Wait." Lily lunged forward, her eyes red with sudden tears. She collapsed against the wall, nearly sobbing. "I know I was wrong. I'd lost my mind. I shouldn't have stolen your admission ticket. I shouldn't have taken your report. My father's company has been seized. The board is ousting him. We're ruined. Please, just take back the evidence you gave to the auditing office." As she wept, she reached behind her and pulled out an unopened bottle of premium mineral water, trembling hands fumbling to twist off the cap. She extended it toward me. "I promise I'll never show up in front of you again. This water is clean. You've been testing all morning. Drink some to soothe your throat. Let's just call it even, okay?" She cried as if her heart was breaking, her eyes filled with genuine remorse. But I didn't miss the faint white powder residue between her right index and middle fingers or the manic gambler's gaze locked on me, waiting for me to grab the bottle. It was a powerful neuroactive hallucinogenic antidepressant. Take it, and within half an hour, it would cause severe dizziness and slurred speech, ruining the final exam completely. I didn't reach for the bottle. "Call it even." I repeated the words. "Yes, call it even. As long as you drink this water and accept my apology." Lemon's eyes flickered with urgency, pushing the bottle forward a few more centimeters. Suddenly, I lunged forward, my hand moving faster than thought, clamping down on her wrist, with a sharp twist downward. I forced her hand open. Ah! Lily shrieked in pain. Her grip gave way. The bottle of spiked water arced through the air. I shifted my other hand, catching it with precision and in one swift motion. I flipped it over and poured the entire bowl of frothy liquid into the Dior-customized handbag slung on her hip. Zzz. Inside the bag were the core electronic components she used to tamper with data, along with several paper documents. The liquid seeped through the cracks at the bottom, quickly soaking everything inside. No, my bag. My backup admission ticket. Lily went mad, lashing out to grab the bag. I shoved her aside, sending her crashing into the storage cabinet with a heavy thud. You bitch, I'll kill you. The veneer of apology shattered instantly. Lily ripped off all pretense, struggling to her feet with a grotesque expression, screaming as she flung her hands toward my face in a desperate lunge. Her long, manicured nails sliced through the air with a sharp, piercing sound. I didn't fight back, but precisely stepped back 3 paces, calculated the distance, and suddenly collided with the large Victorian-style porcelain vase behind me. Crash! The massive porcelain vase lost its balance and shattered into countless pieces on the floor. The harsh sound of breaking porcelain exploding instantly across the empty corridor, its echo nearly filling the entire floor. Grab her. The sound came from here. At the other end of the corridor, Tom, the head of campus security, had just turned the corner with 4 fully armed security officers having received my anonymous text alert and patrolling the area. In their sight, they saw Lily, her face flushed, hands outstretched like an eagle's talons lunging toward me, while I lay sickly pale beside the shattered porcelain debris, appearing like a helpless victim. Stop! Which class is this student from? How dare she attack another examinee in the testing corridor? Tom roared, and the 4 security guards behind him charged forward like, pinning Lily firmly against the wall, 2 on each side. Let me go. It was her. She poured water into my bag. She smashed the vase. Lily's face was pressed tightly against the cold marble wall, her lipstick smearing a long red streak across it. She writhed violently, twisting her body like a frenzied beast cornered into a desperate trap. Tom approached the spilled Dior bag, its contents soaked with liquid and emitting an unusually sweet fragrance. He used his baton to lift the electronic components inside and the bottle with only the bottom remaining, his face darkening with fury. Destroying public property in the examination area, intentionally assaulting another candidate, with unknown drugs and prohibited electronic equipment in her bag. Take her away, confine her in the security detention room. Inform the final examination supervision team to intervene. No, let me go. I'm not crazy. She framed me. Lily's shrieks gradually faded as the security guards dragged her down the corridor. I stood up from among the shards of broken porcelain, brushing non-existent dust from my clothes. At 2:45 p.m., the solemn chime of the final exams preparation bell echoed heavily over the St. Mary's Grand Hall. Unnoticed earlier, thick clouds had gathered in the sky, casting a gloomy shadow over the previously bright afternoon. In front of the massive, wrought iron, latticed gate of the central examination hall, 3 vivid yellow caution tapes had already been stretched across, with 2 rows of police officers holding shields on either side, maintaining the last perimeter of entry order. This was the final exam, the most decisive session determining whether all students would earn their professional certification. I held my black examination file bag in my right hand, slipped in my Bluetooth earbuds, adjusted my playlist, and turned the volume to maximum. Let me go. I'm a candidate. I still have eligibility. You have no right to do this. A piercing, shrill cry suddenly erupted from the security checkpoint to the side. Lily burst out, disheveled and frantic. Her white shirt was unbuttoned messily, and her skirt was smeared with dust from the storage room. Clearly, she had either abused some privilege or taken advantage of a gap between security and the proctor team to escape. Clutching in one hand the backup admission ticket stained with coffee, its top right corner blurred beyond recognition, she was firmly held back by 3 tall security guards just beyond the yellow tape. This candidate, your admission card information is illegible, and you're suspected of prior intentional assault. Until the supervisory committee issues final judgment, you're not allowed to cross the caution line. The security guard's voice was cold, leaving no room for negotiation. Lily struggled desperately, her high heels scraping harshly against the concrete floor, when her bloodshot eyes, pale red from extreme tension, swept across the crowd and locked onto my figure walking toward the gate. Her body suddenly erupted in surprising strength. You stop right there. You don't walk away. She screamed wildly, nearly lunging over the guard's shoulders. I didn't stop. My steps remained steady. In my earbuds, an intense symphony played, filtering her voice into a comical background noise. Please, just talk to them for me. Seeing no response from me. Her voice shifted instantly from rage to broken, desperate pleading. Her knees buckled, and in full view of hundreds of other candidates preparing to enter, she dropped to her knees on the cold, hard tiles, right outside the heavy iron gate. Dozens of students waiting to enter froze. Countless eyes fixed on her. If you just say to Professor David that what happened in the corridor was just a prank among friends, say the bottle of water was spilled by you yourself. Help me this one time, and I'll transfer every trust fund my father owns to you. I'll give you my luxury car. I'm begging you, pull me out of this. I can't miss this exam. If I fail this, I'm ruined. She wailed incoherently, stretching her arm through the gaps in the latticed gate. Her fingernails digging hard into the iron's pattern. The force was so intense it left bloody streaks on the rust. She fixed her gaze on my back, her eyes brimming with deepest fear and one last desperate gamble. She thought that, in front of this massive examination gate, I, being the always respectable, image-conscious good student, might, out of vanity or peer pressure, turn around. Yet I stopped. Only one step from the gate, I raised my left hand and slowly pulled my Bluetooth earbud halfway out of my right ear. Letting the cold wind and her desperate sobs seep through, Lily saw me stop and her eyes suddenly lit up with wild hope. She stood straight, desperately reaching her hand forward. Yais, you turned around. Please, just explain to them you can save me with just one sentence. I turned around, looking down from above across 3 security lines and that cold iron gate at Lily, kneeling on the ground. My face showed neither anger nor the ecstasy of revenge, only an absolute coldness, as if I had seen through everything. In front of her, in front of all the other examinees, I slowly raised my right hand. I didn't point at the security guards, nor did I walk toward her. Instead, I gently waved the hand holding the flawless exam admission ticket over the infrared sensor on the exam hall's entrance door. Beep, candidate verification successful. Please enter. The green indicator light turned on, and the heavy iron gate groaned heavily under the push of the air pressure valve, slowly opening inward. I popped my headphones back into my ear and cranked the volume to maximum. At the exact moment the iron door fully opened, I didn't spare even a single glance at Lily kneeling on the ground. I stepped forward directly into the exam hall, calmly and firmly walking into the bright incandescent light of the hall. Behind me, the massive iron door slammed shut, completely sealing off Lily from the world. Through the thick soundproof glass, I could see her falling into final madness on the other side. She violently slammed her head against the iron door, pulling at her hair, screaming hysterically beyond the security lines, before being mowed down by a surge of SWAT officers and security guards who dragged her off the exam plaza like a bundle of trash. The fluorescent lights in the examination hall flickered brightly, hundreds of single desks arranged neatly in rows. The air filled only with the rustling of pens scratching paper and the heavy footsteps of invigilators pacing on wooden flooring. The final exam had already been underway for 30 minutes. Lily, who should have been locked in the security office, was now sitting 3 rows to my right and slightly ahead. Somehow, she had tapped into one of Charles's remaining contacts and obtained a last-minute special pass. She now wore an oversized spare school tracksuit, her face flushed with a sickly red hue, and her hand clutching a steel pen trembled uncontrollably. In my previous life, it was through this very exam that she bribed the invigilators to slip a microprint cheat sheet into my pencil case, causing me to be publicly reported for cheating at the last moment and completely stripped of my degree. In my peripheral vision, I noticed Lily's eyes darting toward my direction repeatedly. While pretending to focus on answering questions, she slowly moved her left foot outward. At the exact moment when Invigilator David turned to walk toward the back of the classroom, Lily used the motion of adjusting her posture to give a light kick with her toe. A small, white scroll wrapped in transparent tape slid precisely along the smooth tile gap, straight into the blind spot beneath my desk. At the same time, Lily's right hand had already shot up into the air, her lips slightly parted, her eyes flashing with a feverish look of vengeance. She was about to recreate her past act, publicly accusing me of cheating on the spot in front of everyone. 1 second before her hand could fully rise, I raised my right hand first, reporting, Sir. My voice cut through the quiet exam hall clearly. Lily's movement froze abruptly. Her hand hovered in midair, neither lowered nor raised, and her face briefly displayed a bizarrely complex expression. Leading invigilator David stopped, turned, and stepped briskly over to my desk. What's the matter, student? I didn't look at the paper scroll beneath the table. I pointed directly at Lily, sitting ahead and to my right. Teacher, I'm reporting that the student sitting diagonally ahead, Lily, is suspected of serious cheating during the exam. In the past half hour since the test began, she repeatedly used her posture adjustments as cover to pass hidden microprint cheat sheets out of her clothing. Moreover, I just witnessed with my own eyes how she attempted to kick one of the cheating devices under my desk in order to confuse the situation and frame someone else. The moment the words left my mouth, the rustling of pens across the entire exam hall stopped instantly. Dozens of shocked eyes turned toward Lily. You're spouting lies. Lily shot up from her seat, the chair behind her scraping violently across the floor. She pointed at me, her voice trembling with rage. Teacher, it's her cheating. I caught the one making false accusations. The notes on the floor are clearly hers. She must have dropped them herself. David ignored her outburst and bent down, picking up the transparent tape-wrapped scroll from the edge of my desk with white-gloved hands. He unrolled it. Pages contained microprint formulas on international capital restructuring tax rates in 1mm font. Bring the metal detector and the chemical developer spray over here. D. Avid signaled two proctors behind him. Two tall proctors immediately stepped forward, flanking Lily on both sides. Student, please cooperate with the inspection. What right do you have to check me? There's no fingerprint of mine on this. She threw this here, Lily screamed, trying desperately to pull her foot back. But the proctor had already swept over her body with a metal detector. Beep beep. The detector emitted a sharp alarm as it passed over the sole of her right foot and the inner pocket of her athletic wear. Please remove your shoes and cooperate with the pocket search. The invigilator's voice was devoid of any emotion. Lily's body went completely rigid. She clenched her lips tightly, standing motionless. Without another word, the invigilator reached in and pulled open the zipper of her athletic jacket pocket. From inside, he pulled out a highly concealed wireless in-ear headset, along with a miniature high-frequency transmitter the size of a palm. Moreover, another invigilator crouched down and forcibly flipped over the athletic shoe she had been standing on. Under the bright light, the rubber layer of Lily's shoe had been cut open with a sharp blade. Inside, densely packed sheets printed on specially treated waterproof paper contained full solutions to all the unified exam questions. Even the edge of her right sole was coated with invisible ink, filled with core asset liquidation formulas. In the moment the invigilator sprayed chemical developer, the blue characters glowed softly under the incandescent light, clearly visibly so distinct they could make one's skin crawl. Caught red-handed, David said, gazing at the blue formulas now exposed under the lights, his eyes as cold as ice. Not only did you bring high-frequency communication equipment, but you even modified the sole of your shoe into a cheating compartment. Miss Lily, you're not just cheating, you're serious organized cheating. No, that's not mine. Someone put that in my shoe. Teacher, my father is Director Charles. You can't do this to me. Lily's composure shattered completely. She slumped onto her chair, her face deathly pale. Director Charles was unanimously removed from the board 1 hour ago and taken away by the Federal Audit Bureau for investigation. David waved his hand. This student's performance in all subjects of the unified exam is to be nullified. Lifetime ban from practicing qualification exams, entry into the Federal Integrity Blacklist, and handed over to judicial authorities for prosecution. Take her out. Two invigilators grabbed the limp Lily, one on each side, and dragged her directly toward the back door of the testing room. Her toes dragged two long white streaks across the wooden floor. She stared at me with burning hatred and despair in her eyes, so intense it seemed ready to solidify into substance. Yet she didn't even get a chance to utter a sound before an invigilator covered her mouth with a cloth soaked in disinfectant, coldly dragging her out through the main door. 2 months later, in the Grand Hall of St. Mary's College, royal blue velvet curtains descended from a dome nearly 10 meters high, filling the space with over 1,000 graduates dressed in identical academic gowns. Golden spotlights converged at the center of the vast stage. Today was St. Mary's annual graduation ceremony. In her previous life, on this day, Lily had stood triumphantly at the center of this stage, clad in a bespoke gown, having relied on stolen academic reports and forged perfect grades. As representative of the graduating class, she delivered a speech and received the Golden Medallion. a symbol of the highest honor granted by the college board. Meanwhile, in the preparation area beside the stage, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Lily had appeared again, despite her father Charles being under full investigation for embezzlement and academic bribery, and despite her own examination results having red crosses across all subjects. She now stood wearing a borrowed traditional graduate gown formerly reserved for top honorees. Her cheeks were hollowed, her skin pale under thick layers of foundation, and her eyes burned with a desperate, feverish madness. She had used the last remnants of Charles's overseas trust fund to bribe a student intern responsible for playing the PowerPoint presentation, determined to deliver her speech before the school officially issued the expulsion notice. She intended to seize the moment by delivering a speech in front of hundreds of senior executives from major multinational corporations and the media. She planned to manipulate public perception, portraying herself as a noble young woman wronged by the school's elite. The orchestra began to play the solemn coronation march. The female host on stage announced loudly, "Next, please welcome the outstanding graduate representative to deliver her speech." Before the host could even call her name, Lily, in high heels and with her gown needing to be lifted, strode boldly out from behind the curtain. She positioned herself precisely in front of the floor-standing microphone at the center of the stage before anyone could react. The audience, taken students, faculty, and media, immediately erupted into a low murmur. Lily straightened her back, her fingers gripping the edge of the podium so tightly they turned white. A twisted, proud smile spread across her face. She took a deep breath and spoke loudly into the microphone. "Esteemed guests, dear classmates, I am Lily. Standing here, I represent not only academic achievement, but also the spirit of St. Mary's." Her voice stopped abruptly. At the very moment she uttered her first word, the massive holographic screen above, 30 feet high, normally displaying photos of previous outstanding graduates, began flashing with a sharp electronic tone. Instead of her pre-prepared graduation speech, the promised PowerPoint was replaced by a document with a black background and red text of final judgment, stamped and read by the Federal Audit Office, the Academic Independent Oversight Group, and the National Examination Board. The document was crystal clear, each red seal appearing to drip with mocking blood. "My God, look at the screen. Isn't that Lily? How dare she show her face up there?" The media seated in the audience went wild. Cameras flared, lenses snapped, flashes sparked into a dazzling white blur. Lily turned around, stunned, when she saw the words on the screen: massive, bold, and cruel reading. "Due to multiple subjects' academic cheating and bribery, officially revoked her status as graduation representative. Degree cancelled. Lifetime notification issued." Her body froze like lightning struck. Her face drained of all color in an instant. "No, this isn't real. This is a computer virus. Someone hacked the system." Lily screamed hysterically into the microphone, but the sound technician backstage had already cut the power to her mic the moment I stepped onto the stage, preventing her from saying anything nonsense. Her mouth gaped open, yet she could only emit silent, ridiculous, hoarse coughs. The screen switched again. What followed was unedited, high-definition surveillance footage from her previous exams, showing her being caught with cheat sheets hidden in her shoe soles, and attempting to attack me with a sabotaged water bottle in a blind corner of the hallway, only to end up soaking her own bag. Even her father Charles, on his knees begging outside the supervisor's office, had been edited in, piece by piece, incident by incident. Every last shred of her dignity was ripped away. Down with her. A fraud. St. Mary's disgrace. The students below began shouting angrily, hurling streamers and empty water bottles toward the center of the stage like a rainstorm. Dressed in a perfectly tailored black graduation gown, I walked calmly onto the stage from the other side, amidst the roaring crowd. In my hand, I held the pure gold insignia, the highest honor of St. Mary's College, personally handed to me by the dean, the medal that should have been awarded to the valedictorian. When I reached the podium, I passed right by Lily without even casting her a glance, not even a flicker of my eyes. The scandal of the graduation ceremony spread across the entire social network within 3 hours. Outside the Grand Hall of St. Mary's, it was eerily quiet. The heavy clouds above finally broke, unleashing torrential rain that washed the granite pillars standing outside the examination hall, once symbols of power, into a ghostly white. At the street corner near the school's side gate, Lily was slumped on the curb. Her graduation gown had been torn apart during her earlier expulsion by campus security, now smeared with mud. She stared fixedly at her shattered phone screen, her thumb frantically swiping across the display. Just half an hour ago, under an anonymous account, she had posted a carefully crafted long-form article titled "A Rich Girl's Downfall" on the largest public forum in the Federation. In the article, she portrayed herself as a victim, a daughter of a bankrupt family who had been maliciously framed and had her graduation honors stolen by the school's senior administration and a so-called ruthless poor girl. Every word dripped with accusation and grievance. Why? Why are you destroying everything? Gee. I'll make you all die too, Lily muttered, grinding her teeth, her eyes blazing with desperate, allure-nothing madness. Thanks to the remaining public relations team of Charles, who were covertly amplifying the narrative, the post's popularity was skyrocketing at an alarming rate. The comment section quickly flooded with innocent sympathizers and growing condemnation of the school. A black Lincoln sedan slowly came to a stop in the puddles just 3 meters away from her. The window rolled down, and I sat in the dry, warm back seat of the car, looking down through the rain-soaked glass at Lily, shivering in the storm. Lily suddenly looked up. The moment she saw me, she seemed to grasp at a lifeline, springing to her feet and rushing wildly to the car door, pounding frantically on the bulletproof glass with hands painted in chipped nail polish. You came to see my humiliation. Me, you think you've won. My article is trending. Public opinion will crush you. The public will investigate your and the Academic Affairs Office's disgusting dealings. You'll never hold that honor for long. She screamed through the window, her face pressed against the glass, grotesquely distorted. I didn't roll down the window, nor did I lean forward. I simply slowly raised my left hand and flipped the screen of my pad, facing it toward Lily outside. The screen displayed the very article she had posted, now with 1 million likes and climbing. But the very second she tried to crack a triumphant smirk, the article's popularity abruptly vanished. Then, simultaneously across all major platforms, official media outlets, even the Federation's judicial audit accounts, one joint clarifying announcement was published. There were no extra words, only 2 attachments. The first was a high-definition pinhole camera video, captured in her dorm room that morning, showing her own hands swapping my examination permit, then hiding the coffee-stained ID in a Givenchy handbag. The second attachment was a bank-encrypted statement, showing a series of wire transfers from a Cayman Islands trust fund over the past 15 days totaling $50 million Federation dollars paid to 3 exam administrators, one by one. Most damning of all, each transaction's memo in English clearly stated, for purchase of Lily's qualification exam reference answers. These evidences I had painstakingly extracted over the past 6 months, piece by piece, through former finance staff who had left Charles's company. Before these ironclad evidences, the victim persona she had just built shattered in 1,000th of a second. The once supportive public opinion flipped violently, comment sections rapidly drowned in words like academic worm, magnate swindler, get out of finance. Lily stared at the rapidly scrolling comments on the screen, at the transfer records stamped with official seals from the judicial authorities. Her hands suddenly stopped tapping against the car window. Her face changed from red to bluish, finally turning into a corpse-like gray-white. When did you get these things? This can't be. My father locked those records in a Swiss bank vault. Lily's voice trembled so badly she could no longer form coherent sentences. Her phone slipped from her weakened fingers, falling with a thud into a muddy puddle at her feet, its screen going completely black. A loud rumble, a flash of lightning streaked across the sky, casting her face, twisted with extreme fear, into a ghostly pallor. Not only that, just behind her on the street, 3 FBI police cars with alternating blue and red lights cut through the rain, their sirens wailing shrilly as they approached and precisely parked beside her. Several agents in black uniforms, with cold and harsh expressions, stepped out of the vehicles, holding a brightly visible formal arrest warrant. Ms. Lily, you are suspected of collaborating with former St. Mary's board member Charles in transnational academic fraud, massive money laundering, and malicious slander. All your overseas trust accounts have been fully frozen 5 minutes ago. Please come with us. The agent gave her no chance to resist, and cold handcuffs snapped shut on her wrists. My pad, raised the window, and the Lincoln sedan slowly pulled away. The storm had just passed, and on the 30th floor of the administrative main building at St. Mary's College, a place offering the best view of the entire financial district, you could look down upon the towering skyscrapers of the Federal Financial Center through floor-to-ceiling windows. The corridor was carpeted with thick Persian rugs, and the air carried the scent of premium cologne and fine leather. Today was the official signing ceremony for the sole management trainee offer in Greater China at the global top-tier multinational firm Goldman Morgan. In my former life, Lily had used her connection to board member Charles to seize the acceptance letter that was originally mine, becoming a rising star in the financial world. Now, outside the heavy mahogany doors of the interview hall, Lily was furiously gripping the doorframe. She had somehow been released from the detention center, her athletic wear torn and tattered, her face suffused with an almost diseased flush. In her arms, she tightly clutched a yellowed brown paper bag containing what she believed was her secret weapon, the turning point she desperately needed. "Step aside. I'm here to see Director Sophia," Lily screamed, trying to push past the two tall secretaries standing in front of her. "I have a unique patent certificate for the Smart Asset Risk Hedging Algorithm, a patent exclusive to the entire federal region. Once Director Sophia sees this, she'll have to sign me up. I'm the rightful heir to Goldman Morgan." The two secretaries remained impassive, firmly gripping her shoulders to prevent her from moving forward. At that moment, the mahogany doors slowly opened from the inside. Sophia, the powerful HR director in a custom-tailored suit, emerged surrounded by her assistants. Her gaze paused for a second on the disheveled Lily, her eyebrows slightly furrowing. "This is a private signing event. Madam, please leave immediately," Sophia said in a cold, authoritative voice, exuding the unwavering authority of a top executive. Seeing this, Lily abruptly broke free from the secretaries and collapsed onto her knees before Sophia's leather shoes, lifting the brown paper bag high above her head. "Director Sophia, please just look. This is my grandfather's core algorithm patent left to me. In today's merger market, this algorithm can enhance your company's risk control efficiency by at least 30. That other woman is nothing but a thief who stole my family's results. You cannot hire her." Lily's voice echoed harshly through the vacant corridor, her eyes filled with the desperation of a final gamble. She was certain that, in the face of pure commercial interest, a profit-driven conglomerate like Goldman Morgan wouldn't care about her reputation. If the patent was real, she would make a comeback. Sophia didn't reach for the envelope. Instead, she stepped aside respectfully, slightly retreating. I walked calmly out of the interview room, carrying a freshly printed document bearing the official gold anti-counterfeit embossing seal of the Federal Patent Office, with a black backpack slung over my shoulders. "Lily," I said, standing before her and looking down at her face twisted with extreme anxiety, "the algorithm patent you're talking about wasn't its number US 202600987. Lily paused, then screamed instinctively, "Yes, that's it, you little thief. How dare you memorize the number 2? I said nothing more, flipping the document in my hand to reveal it to Sophia and every executive in the hallway. It was a final ruling on fraudulent intent by patent holder and revision of patent ownership. 2 years ago, Charles abused his board privileges to forcibly archive the initial algorithm code I submitted to the school's research group, and secretly registered a shell company overseas under your grandfather's name to patent it. Get a head start." I looked at Lily, a faint smile curling at the corner of my mouth. "But you seem to have forgotten that at the very core of every line of the core algorithm, there is my personal electronic signature written in a proprietary hexadecimal code." This morning, the Federal Patent Court issued a formal ruling, stripping all false ownership of the patent and returning it unconditionally to the true independent inventor. Below the document, the handwritten signature of the federal judge and the golden infrared anti-counterfeit label from the patent office gleamed under the lights. Lily stared at the document, her eyes slowly widening as the last glimmer of light in her pupils flickered out. Trembling, she opened her own brown paper envelope, only to spill out a piece of paper stamped in red ink by federal marshals with the word void. "No, this can't be. Dad said it was perfectly seamless." Lily collapsed onto the carpet, the discarded paper scattered across the floor. Director Sophia shook her head, her eyes filled with disdain. She turned, took a golden Parker pen from her assistant, along with the exclusive offer for a top-tier management trainee worth 1,000,000 federal credits, and handed it to me with both hands. "Miss Name, welcome to Goldman Sachs Morgan. Full scholarships and independent research funding have already been transferred to your personal account. Wishing us a pleasant collaboration in the next round of transnational mergers and acquisitions." I took the pen, then signed my name with sharp, decisive strokes in the lower right corner of the offer. Inside the Golden Hall on the top floor of the administrative building, crystal chandeliers refracted dazzling light. The Federation's most prominent financiers, academic luminaries, and chief reporters from major media outlets had all gathered. On the high platform, the Outstanding Young Finance Professional of the Year award ceremony, hosted by the Federation Financial Association, was entering its final phase. In my previous life, on this day, I had already quietly exited the stage in despair, sinking into obscurity as an unknown shadow in the mire. But in this life, this place became the throne from which I would ascend to the peak. Suddenly, the heavy double doors of the hall, adorned with intricate carvings, were thrust open with a loud, dull thud. "Let me go. I need to see the panel. I'm innocent." Lily burst in, disheveled and disoriented. Her clothes were torn. Only one high-heeled shoe remained on her foot, while the other treaded bare on the mirror-smooth marble floor, leaving a trail of alarming bloodstains. Several security guards and special police officers pursued closely, but hesitated to act immediately due to the multitude of media cameras present. She had completely lost her mind. After learning that all her overseas assets had been seized and the only patent she'd hoped could turn the tide had been awarded to me, her final psychological support had shattered. Lily tore wildly through the guests dressed in opulent attire, heading straight for the center of the stage. When she saw me standing there, clad in a custom-tailored black suit, with the golden medal representing the highest academic honor pinned to my chest, her bloodshot eyes flared with animalistic madness. "You thief! You've stolen everything from me. You're the reason my father went to jail and I was left with nothing." Lily screamed hysterically, her hands clawing forward as she lunged toward me on stage. The media seats below immediately erupted in flashes of light, capturing her ugly, deranged face without mercy. I stood motionless at the center of the podium, my expression calm as she charged forward. At the exact moment Lily's fingertips were about to touch the edge of the stage, 3 police officers in uniform, their faces stern and impassive, struck from the side like lightning, delivering a clean shoulder toss that slammed her heavily onto the cold tile floor. Click! The cold handcuffs clicked shut under the spotlight, their sharp sound ringing through the hall. "Arrest order is now in effect." The lead officer straightened up and, producing a document stamped with the red seal of the Federation Supreme Court, announced clearly before the entire audience and media, "Applicant Lily, on charges of organizing international exam fraud, large-scale money laundering, illegal theft of trade secrets, and multiple counts of malicious defamation, the court has rendered its final verdict. 15 years imprisonment, to be served immediately. 15 years, for a debutante accustomed to a life of privilege and dominance." This number meant the complete death of her existence. Lily slumped on the ground, her wrists bruised and bleeding from the handcuffs. She watched as the uncountable relatives and elders who once fawned over her turned coldly away, and as the big screen live-streamed her humiliating arrest in grotesque detail. At last, she realized that her family's glory, her arrogance, and her future had been buried by her own greed and scheming. "No. This isn't real. Take me away. Get me out of here." Lily lost all strength to resist. 2 officers pulled her up from the floor like wet cloth, her face ashen as they carried her toward the exit. As she passed directly under the stage, she gathered her last strength, raising her head to look at me standing in the center of the spotlight. I slightly lowered my head, looking down at her. My eyes held no wild glee at the fulfillment of vengeance, only the calm indifference of an observer viewing debris finally swept into place. I raised my right hand, and amid thunderous applause, accepted from Professor Grace herself the documented global partnership offer representing the highest standard in the industry. Lily watched the scene, her lips trembling as she tried to say something, but was ruthlessly dragged out through the golden door by the bailiffs. The heavy doors slammed shut at that moment, completely cutting off her cries from this world of wealth and honor. Applause surged around me like a tide, and countless flashbulbs focused on me. I turned around, facing the endless financial storm ahead, and turned the page to a brand new chapter in my life.